Good afternoon and welcome to the Diversity in Tech Summit. This panel focuses specifically on the Emergency Broadband Benefit and outreach to our nation's historically Black colleges and universities. I'm Brittany Ray Gregory. I'm the Communications Director at Next Century Cities. We're an organization committed to connecting leaders across the country who want to provide affordable, reliable broadband for their residents. I'm also a proud Howard University Bison, so I was really excited to host this panel because it brings together two topics that I'm very passionate about, HBCUs and tech policy. So today we'll have a timely discussion about the FCC's EBB program, especially as it relates to HBCUs and its needs in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to explore how the EBB could benefit HBCUs and what needs HBCUs have, especially as it relates to the broadband landscape. On today's panel, we have Jessica Rosenworcel, Acting Chair of the Federal Communications Commission, Hubert D. Harris, Chief of Staff at Virginia State University, and Daryl McMillan, Chief Information Officer at Delaware State University. Federal Communications Commission Acting Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel works to promote greater opportunity, accessibility, and affordability in our communications services. She believes strong communications markets can foster economic growth and security, enhance digital age opportunity, and enrich our civic life. She works to develop policies to help expand the reach of broadband to schools, libraries, hospitals, and households across the country. Chairwoman Rosenworcel brings more than 2 decades of communications policy experience and public service to the FCC. Prior to joining the agency, she served as Senior Communications Counsel for the United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Before entering public service, she practiced communications law in Washington, D.C. Thank you for joining us today, Chairwoman Rosenworcel.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a treat to be here. I am hopeful that in a few months hence, we can do this kind of thing in person. But we're here today to talk about broadband. And here's what I think. There was a time, maybe before this pandemic, when we treated broadband in every household as nice to have. But the last 15 months have demonstrated conclusively its need to have for everyone, everywhere. Because as a nation, we have masked up, we have hunkered down, and we have gone online for healthcare, for entertainment, for work, and for education. But the truth is, we've got lots of households in this country that are struggling to connect. And we've got lots of students who don't have a reliable and consistent broadband connection. And that's making it hard for them to not only get into the virtual classroom, it's making hard for them to keep up with school. And if we don't get them connected, it's going to be a drain on our economy because we want those students not just to consume content online, we want them to be part of the creator economy. So the way I look at it is that the Federal Communications Commission really has no bigger task right now than figuring out how to get 100% of our households in this country connected to high-speed internet service. That might sound hard, but we've done it before with electricity, with the basic telephone system. We're going to do it now with broadband. And I'm proud that the FCC, under my leadership, has been making some big steps. We are doing what we've done in the past years, which is trying to help support infrastructure in rural areas. But we're also making a new push right now to make sure that broadband is more affordable for more people in more places. And one of our big initiatives is the Emergency Broadband Benefit, which Brittany, you mentioned, which we're here to talk about today. And that is a new initiative that helps low-income households, people who've lost jobs, are on SNAP, Medicaid, or on Pell Grants. By the way, that's 7 million students nationwide. And it means they can get a discount of up to $50 on their broadband bill and further discounts off of tablets or laptop computers. The bottom line is we need to start using this program to connect the disconnected. And we got to be real intentional about reaching out and making sure that people hear about it, because I don't think we're going to actually see our full digital economy grow and flourish in this country until we connect everyone. And I think programs like the Emergency Broadband Benefit is a really terrific tool we have now to get more students connected, more people in more places. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you more about it today. Thank you again for having me here. This is a really, really important discussion, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you so much again. Right now, I'll introduce Mr. Hubert D. Harris. Hubert D. Harris serves as the Chief of Staff of Virginia State University in Petersburg, Virginia. He brings several decades of information technology experience to his role. As Chief of Staff, Harris oversees the Office of the President's administrative functions, which include information technology and communications. He joined Virginia State in February 2011 as the Chief Information Officer, where he directed the modernization of the information technology systems at Virginia State. As CIO, Mr. Harris oversaw projects for academic, research, and administrative computing, and successfully implemented IT, infrastructure, and information systems for the university. Among other achievements, Mr. Harris transformed VSU into a digital campus where students, faculty, and staff can interact with university systems at any time on any device worldwide. Welcome, Mr. Harris.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Acting Chairwoman Rosenworcel, industry experts, staff, and guests. On behalf of President Makola M. Abdullah and the faculty, staff, and students of Virginia State University, I am pleased to participate in today's Diversity and Technology Broadband Summit. Virginia State University is a 139-year-old historically Black college and university located in Chesterfield County, Virginia, about 25 miles due south of Richmond. VSU is fully accredited to provide bachelor, master, and doctorate degrees by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. As a university, VSU has sought to close the digital divide for our students. The State Council for Higher Education for Virginia published research that shows that 18% of African-American households and 15% of Latino households lack broadband. To that end, during the past 15 months, Virginia State University has provided technology stipends to more than 2,600 students to purchase needed laptops and computer peripherals needed for remote instruction. We've provided wireless access points to students who lacked internet access at home. We have upgraded our campus wired and wireless local area networks, and we've implemented fully redundant broadband circuits with carrier diversity for academic, administrative, and research computing. We did have some of our students located in our residence halls during the pandemic, so we implemented a 4 gig per second circuit so that they'd have high-speed connectivity in their dorms. We've migrated our academic and administrative systems to the cloud for increased information security and resiliency. Finally, VSU established a virtual computer lab using Amazon Web Services to provide continuity of instruction using hands-on access to educational technology via the internet. Excuse me. Based on the accomplishments I just cited, it would appear that VSU is well positioned in terms of broadband. However, the broadband requirements for a typical National Science Foundation grant require cyber infrastructure with a minimum of 100 gigabits per second network backbone. Access to research networks such as Internet 2 and high-performance computing infrastructure is essential, but only 9 of 102 HBCUs, roughly 8%, are Internet 2 members. Internet 2 has 478 colleges and universities within its membership ranks. Within the Commonwealth of Virginia, 10 of its 12 public universities are Internet 2 members. However, the 2 universities that are not are HBCUs. In fact, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, there are 5 HBCUs, 2 public and 3 private institutions. None of the Virginia-based HBCUs have access to Internet 2 as higher education members. While I formally represent Virginia State University, I am confident that my viewpoint is representative of my colleagues at other historically Black colleges and universities across our nation. HBCUs require high-speed broadband connectivity like any other college or university. Faculty and students need high-speed broadband to connect to academic and research platforms using any device from anywhere and at any time to teach, to learn, to research, and develop solutions to complex problems. Many of our students come from areas underserved by technology. HBCUs have the common desire for our campuses to be fully digital and for our constituents to access university resources using high-speed broadband, whether on campus or at home. HBCU students come from urban, suburban, and rural areas. While our locations are different, our problems are very similar. Thank you for your attention in addressing the equity of broadband access, and VSU is available to assist with addressing this national issue. Let us all work together to eliminate the digital divide for all Americans.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And our final panelist for today is Daryl B. McMillan. Daryl B. McMillan serves as the Vice President of Information Technology and Chief Information Officer for Delaware State University in Dover, Delaware. With more than 30 years of experience in information technology, he oversees all of the university's technology and related communications, supporting student learning, administrative processes, community service, and other things. As VP and CIO, McMillan is also responsible for leading the selection, design, implementation, integration, and ongoing support for all information systems, and for leading and planning the enhancement and support of the data, voice network, infrastructures, and services at the university. He also provides leadership to enhance access and security for all of the university's networked resources and information services, providing leadership for the development and maintenance of university-wide technology standards, policies, and service agreements, and developing and maintaining a strategic technology plan and associated tactical technology plans. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and our story is very similar to others. Sitting here at Delaware State University under the leadership of President Tony Allen, we continue to be the most diverse contemporary HBCU in the nation. We are looking to continue to build upon some of the same issues that have already been addressed. Our goal is to continue to build broadband and be able to deal with some of the ongoing issues that continue to occur. Technology is growing at a very, very fast pace. There are many, many changes as it relates to programs and services. So we have to continue to be there to deal with those items. We, during the pandemic, had the opportunity to move all of our courses to online activity, as well as move all of our faculty and staff to remote support. We were able to do that because we've had the ability to upgrade our infrastructure, our networks, our wireless environment, and we were in a position to support ourselves during the pandemic. The scenario that we have, though, is that you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to occur. And having a strategic plan and being able to build upon it is something that we have to continue to work towards. So our goal is to continue to build on our environment. We had the same scenario as far as having to have students that did not have access, being able to provide them with wireless access, sending them devices to their homes. We have an Apple Initiative program, so it's our goal. We put a device in every student's hand, whether it's an iPad or a MacBook, that allows them to work, but they still need the internet broadband to be able to access our systems. Very similar to VSU, we have put together remote learning environments. So we've set up Citrix to be able to access environments and our work environments in a separate environment so that no one has the concern with being able to get to us. So by changing in the amount of bandwidth that's required when you look at the number of different types of services, whether it's WebEx, whether it's Zoom, whether it's online learning platforms, bandwidth is always a true issue and concern that needs to be addressed. So I'm very happy to have an opportunity to speak with you, to be part of this panel, and looking forward to great conversation.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. So we're going to jump right into this conversation here. My first question is actually for either Mr. Harris or Mr. McMillan, whichever one of you wants to answer first. But as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, colleges and universities nationwide held classes online for the better part of the spring 2020, fall 2020 semesters, as you all mentioned. In spring 2021, we saw about 1/4 of the colleges in the country move to hybrid and in-person options, while most HBCUs remained primarily online or fully online. Why do you all think that so many HBCUs chose to remain virtual, or at least partially virtual? And what challenges were created by this decision? And I know that you all did touch on it a little bit in your introductions.
Yeah, I'll start off. Virginia State University was full virtual for the spring 2020 semester. However, for the fall semester, we were in a hybrid where we had some students that were on campus and we had students that were attending classes via the internet. That spotlighted that when we had access issues, we thought that it would be our students who primarily live in the rural areas. What we found is that we had students who live in New York City who didn't have access to adequate broadband. The assumption was that the libraries would be open, or you could go to an internet cafe and have access to broadband if you're in an urban area. And we found throughout the pandemic that that wasn't true. We also found out that a lot of our college students had siblings in K through 12 who also needed to be on the home internet connection at the same time as they were trying to complete their college education synchronous and using video conferencing to engage with their faculty and other students. There wasn't enough broadband capacity for those students, even when they live in large metropolitan areas, or they didn't have a computer that was at home, or that computer was shared between multiple siblings. And so when we talk about the digital divide, it is not just in rural areas, but it's also, we see that with our students who live in the urban areas and suburban, as well as rural areas across the country. So I think initially we were positioned ahead of time through our administration leadership that we began to examine, what do we need to do to make our university more resilient a couple years back. And unfortunately, those plans did come into play here, but we didn't anticipate that there would be so many students that didn't have broadband access at home. And so we basically came up with initiatives to bridge that gap.
Thank you. Mr. McMillan, do you have anything to offer to that question?
Yeah, I think that for us as well, we started and we created a hybrid work environment in 2020 when this occurred, and we were able to do teaching here at the university as well as online. Again, we kind of moved our environment to allow our faculty to be able to teach within a 5-day period once things happened, and we were able to do that because we had the infrastructure in place to make that happen. But again, similar to VSU, we saw scenarios where when we provided people with the devices and they were in these rural areas, they had issues with being able to access internet. One of the things that we were hopefully thinking of is maybe in the possibility of establishing kind of a hotspot scenario for students so that they would have access to internet, whether they needed a device or not. That was one of the things that hopefully we can look to possibly address in the future, because they just didn't have access to it. And as you say, we also ran into the problem with not only just students because of everyone else in their household, but even faculty having issues being able to teach and provide services because the bandwidth restrictions were just so difficult. And even in our own environments, we restrict bandwidth depending on issues and concerns. So the more bandwidth we're able to bring in, the better for all concerned.
And that brings up another point. When we moved to remote instruction, we utilized platforms such as what we're doing today with Zoom and WebEx. What we didn't anticipate is that the students and faculty would hit the upper threshold of bandwidth consumption, and then they were throttled back, which then prevented us from providing a quality instructional experience only because the carriers had restricted the bandwidth that device was using.
And are your campuses moving to more people coming back onto campus for this fall?
Yes, it's our plan to be fully here for this particular fall environment. So that's what we're currently planning on now. Our right now we're at a little over 5,000 students that are here at the university, with our goal to continue to rise in that number. We typically have about 23 to 2,400 students on campus. So it is our goal as of right now that we're bringing everyone back to the university. So this broadband it keeps me up at night, just kind of making sure that we're in place, that we have the security that's necessary, because as you install and have broadband, we're also dealing with security initiatives where you're dealing with cameras, you're dealing with wireless, all of those pieces that are all part of this.
Yeah, VSU is looking to be full face-to-face instruction. But as a member of the president's cabinet, I also have to play the devil's advocate and say we also need to prepare for the scenario that the virus didn't go anywhere, and that we need to go back to a full or modified remote learning environment. So we have to prepare for both of those scenarios while it's not an urgent request at this time, but we have to prepare for the scenario just in case if we needed to go that route. So our basic plan is to have full students here on campus, employees as well as staff, and try to have a normal academic experience, because I know our students and our administrators and faculty, they want to see the students. We enjoy being around our students. They enjoy being with us. So we want to provide that experience back to them.
Definitely. And I know that this has definitely shifted priorities as you all move forward. Chairwoman Rosenworcel, I do have a question for you. Considering some of the challenges that Mr. McMillan and Mr. Harris have highlighted, how could the emergency broadband benefit help students as they move forward into this next semester?
Sure. Thank you for the question. And before I start, look at what our educators and HBCUs have done. It's like this pandemic came and they shifted gears so fast to try to figure out how to keep those students connected, keep them online, and keep them in class. That's astonishing. It's amazing how much work went into it. And we've also got to make it easier for those students to connect. It shouldn't be this hard. And so the Emergency Broadband Benefit is this new program, started last month. We have $3.2 billion to distribute. It helps anyone who's in a low-income household. And like I said at the start, that can be SNAP, Medicaid. It can be Pell Grants. It can be having a child in a school where they've got a lot of students on the free and reduced lunch program. It can be just having lost a job or a substantial amount of income in 2020 because of the pandemic. In other words, there's lots of ways you can qualify for the Emergency Broadband Benefit. And if you do, your broadband provider can offer you up to $50 a month reduction on your broadband bill. That's a lot of money. And that's the difference for some students with keeping up in class and falling behind. We have more than 1,000 broadband providers in this country who are participating. And anyone who's interested can go to getemergencybroadbandbenefit.org. We're also working with the Department of Education to send out email notices to everyone who's a recipient of a Pell Grant so we can make them aware. This is a really good program to help get people online who are struggling to stay in class, who might have lost income during the pandemic, whose families are hurting. Because we realize it's not just like an internet connection because it's some luxury technology. I mean, this is where we now go for education. It's where we go for healthcare. It's where we go for jobs. It's how we apply for work. And it's going to be the platform for everything we do and create in the future. So we've got to get as many people connected as possible and as many students connected as possible. And so we are looking to make sure we get the word out about the Emergency Broadband Benefit, because me preaching from my office in Washington has limitations. We got to find institutions, trusted folks in communities who can tell people about it and let them know that this program exists, because it is here to help. And I think if we do a really good job with this program, we're going to turn around to Congress and say, okay, our digital divide isn't just about infrastructure, it's about affordability. And we need long-term programs in this country to make sure every household can afford broadband. It's no longer a luxury, it's a necessity.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. So HBCUs are definitely anchor institutions in their respective communities, and service is at the core of many HBCU missions and as evidenced through many of their mottos. Why is broadband critical to helping to carry out the institutional goals of service to the communities that HBCUs serve?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier about just being able to participate on a grant, whether that be for any of our federal partners or our community partners. Access to broadband, as evident by just trying to get the word out for COVID vaccinations. There were a lot of citizens who didn't have access, and the initial going in strategy was you'd be able to schedule your appointment for vaccination using the internet. And then we quickly found out that not everyone had access to it. So just from the community, as well as our education partners, our students and faculty, and the research that is required to solve some of our complex problems, all of those things require collaboration and requires the ability to share information across the internet with other institutions or to jointly develop solutions. And because everything may not be able to be solved in one location. So we are a connected society. And I believe that HBCUs, and as well as our communities, also need to be connected.
And considering that many HBCU classrooms do extend beyond the physical campus space, as you all have touched on time and time again, not just in the pandemic, but that's just the nature of HBCUs and the, what HBCUs teach. But what do your institutions in particular, but also across the board, need when it comes to broadband deployment?
When it comes to I'll jump in there. When it comes to broadband deployment, I believe our institutions just need to have the capability to expand on our learning and research environments. So if we're looking to take and extend broadband, we have to be able to do that, whether it's in our classrooms, whether it's the remote learning environment, however we're able to deliver. It gives us more flexibility with the delivery of our content as we go along. And that's one of the key benefits to being able to have that capability.
Yeah, and I would agree with Mr. McMillan. Having access is one thing. But if you think about it, we have a situation where collaboration is things that we want our students to be able to do, because when they go into their careers, they're going to be collaborating with folks all the time. So it needs to be second nature. I mean, there are areas just a few years back where they didn't have cable TV in certain areas of the country, and certain areas relied on satellite in order to just get basic programming on TV. We see the same thing happening with the internet, and the push for broadband allows our universities and our students to provide that diversity that our corporations, our government, as well as our communities need in terms of having a well-rounded and well-thought-out solution. Participating in research is necessary. Virginia State University is one of 2 land-grant universities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the other one being Virginia Tech. We have 8 gigabits per second connection circuits. They have 100 gigabits per second. We do the exact same thing in terms of reaching out through our cooperative extension programs to reach out to farmers and et cetera. But we don't have the same playing field in terms of having access to the same level of broadband. And that is something that I think needs to be addressed.
If I could just jump on that, because I do want to trumpet the Federal Communications Commission and its ability to help get those students connected at home wherever they are. Mm-hmm. I also want to draw attention to something that the Department of Commerce just issued a rule on yesterday. It's the Connecting Minority Communities Pilot Program. And what that is, it's a $285 million program to help connect HBCUs and their communities. And it's designed to help HBCUs upgrade the kind of technology they have where they are at. And there are going to be funding opportunities that come out of that, because I think we've recognized that these are not just important communities for the individuals that live in them and go to school in them. It's that we've got real possibilities for the creation economy if we bring higher speeds to these institutions and the areas around them. So that's a terrific program. And, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it while I sat here before leadership from two great institutions in Virginia and Delaware.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, I did receive that NTIA notice, and that is certainly something that our institution is looking at.
Oh, I love it. You're already on it.
Same with us. We appreciate it.
And Chairwoman, as we do have a question in the chat, someone asked if you could repeat the name of the program that you just mentioned.
Sure. Emergency Broadband Benefit. And you can learn about it. You can call your internet service provider, those in your area, ask about it. They might be able to qualify you and get you signed up right away. You can also go to getemergencybroadband.org if you've got online access, read some more about it, get qualified, and figure out what broadband providers in your area. We've also got lots of information on fcc.gov/broadband benefit. We've got flyers, printouts, information in 9 different languages. It's really designed to be cut and paste into any institution's materials to help get the word out about this program and help people around you get connected to consistent and reliable high-speed service.
Thank you. And I know that you all have touched on this, Mr. McMillan and Mr. Harris, but looking ahead, what are some initiatives that your institutions could undertake or plan to undertake with expanded broadband access?
I know for us, with expanded broadband access, one of the projects that we actually are working on now is voice over IP. We're trying to institute that across the university as a whole. We've had older telephone systems here at some point, so we've been in the process of upgrading. And as you go in and you start to upgrade something like voice over IP, there's so many additional features that are all part of that really lean upon the actual bandwidth. So when we look at that, that's one of the projects that we're having. There's also a couple of security initiatives that we have, which based on our security, it utilizes our camera systems for viewing as well as the wireless environment. So those particular projects are something that extending broadband and giving us more will help a lot with instituting those projects.
For Virginia State University, we have been on VoIP since 2013. And I guess from my perspective, I want our faculty to have more access to be able to participate on large research projects. I think with that, we basically get additional capability to our faculty. And then because of the research that they're doing, they're able to impart that knowledge to our students. So I think by allowing us to have more access to broadband, then we'd have a better likelihood to be able to compete after large research grants that we're not able to do only because we don't have the cyber infrastructure required. I mentioned earlier that a typical NSF grant requires 100 gigabits per second, and we're at 8. So we have a ways to go to be able to get there. But I also think that we have the basic building blocks in place already to be able to move in that direction. And certainly this NTIA initiative allows us to close that gap. In terms of the emergency broadband benefit, that is going to allow us to sustain what we did with remote instruction. We, through one of our benefactors, were able to get wireless access points, and we mailed those out to students who had connectivity issues. But using that emergency benefit that your office came up with, Madam Chairwoman, we're able to get those students now to have connections at home, and that will further increase their connectivity to the main campus. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I just do want to, again, another question came up in the chat about the program, one of the programs that Chairwoman Rosenworcel mentioned, and that's the Connected Minority Communities Pilot Program. You can find out information about that on the NTIA website in one of their most recent press releases. And I do have another question for you, Chairwoman Rosenworcel. What does the FCC need from Congress or other federal entities, private partners, as you're looking forward to trying to help address some of these issues that Mr. McMillan and Mr. Harris have mentioned that are of a special concern on HBCU campuses?
All right. Well, how much time do you have? But I will start with the big one. I think as a nation, we have to commit to the idea we get 100% of our households connected to broadband, no matter who you are, where you came from, what you look like, or where you live. Let's decide that's the infrastructure challenge in this country that matters, because when we spend to make that happen, we are going to grow our economy and grow our civic life. I think we have to make that a national objective and a national goal, a 100% policy. I hope we can get the word out about the emergency broadband benefit, because affordability is a huge crisis in the digital divide. We have 3 times as many households who are not connected in this country because of affordability as we do households that don't have the infrastructure present. We're also going to have to work on that infrastructure piece. And here's something else that would help us a lot from a lot of communities nationwide, including those around HBCUs. One thing I noticed when we took over at the FCC is that our maps about where broadband is and is not in this country, they are not what they should be. They don't tell us with precision where service is, where it's not. They don't reflect our lived experience in a good way. And what I think is really vital is that we start developing good data and good maps that tell us those things, because we will devote our energies and our resources to the right places with more precision if we have that data. So one of the things that I am starting at the FCC is a big broadband data task force initiative. We're going to go to our carriers, ask where they have service, ask where they don't. And we're not going to stop there. Then we're going to turn around and look to state and local leaders and say, does this map look like what you think is going on in your backyard? And it's occurred to me over time that it's really important we also turn to university communities and their students, because I think there is no one better equipped to start telling us if in fact there is service in a place or not service in a place. So I hope that we can find ways to work together on that mapping initiative. I wish I could tell you we could turn that around and do it overnight. It's going to take some time, but I think if we build really good maps, we're not just going to solve our nation's broadband problem. We're going to start asking hard questions about healthcare, maternal mortality, how much telemedicine can assist with pregnancy and help women who might be in high-risk pregnancies with wireless-based monitoring. We're going to start figuring out what kind of correlations there are between economic growth in areas with gigabit speeds and communities that might stall economically that don't have service. I just think there's a lot we can learn if we map what's going on in this country, and I'm hoping that we can turn to local leaders, state leaders, and even universities for assistance in that process.
Thank you for that. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Next Century Cities does have an initiative called Show Me Your Maps. If you visit nextcenturycities.org, we have started looking at just what's going on in communities nationwide. And whether
by the way, it's terrific. I want to just vouch for that. It's great work you're doing. The more people who want to work on this kind of thing, the better. My attitude is come one, come all, because if we all come together, we're going to have the kind of information that is going to improve infrastructure in the digital age for everyone.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. But yes, if you're interested, please visit nextcenturycities.org, and it's on our homepage, and you can find out more information about just kind of scratching the surface about what's happening in communities nationwide. Any final thoughts that you all have about what we've talked about here today? We're almost right at 1:15.
I think it's important for us to get the word out to our students and our community about taking advantage of these programs coming from the FCC. Just nearby across our Appomattox River, we have the city of Petersburg. They're one of our partners, which is positioned differently economically than in Chesterfield County, where the university is located. To our east and west, we have rural areas. So getting the word out to get connected through broadband, through any of the initiatives that the FCC has in place and NTIA has in place, I think benefits our society as a whole. And so Virginia State University, through our president and our leadership team, we will certainly do whatever we can to make those initiatives successful.
From a Delaware State perspective, we're just happy to have had an opportunity to be part of this. We see everything that's going on, and we know what the pitfalls are for our students, and we need to make sure that we're doing the very best we can to support their learning initiatives. And we can only do that through a concerted effort among everyone to provide them with what it is that they need for our faculty, for our staff, to be able to provide students with everything that's required to continue to grow and for them to come out and do what they need to do as citizens. So from our perspective, from Delaware State, from our president, Dr. Tony Allen, we are here to be part of any activity or support that we can provide. So thank you for this time.
So this pandemic has been tough in all kinds of hard, unexpected ways. But as we leave it, I don't really want to bounce back to normal and do what we did before. I want us to leave and have new urgency when we talk about the digital divide. And I'm cautiously optimistic. We are pushing hard in that direction because we have new programs at the Federal Communications Commission, like the Emergency Broadband Benefit. We have new programs to connect K through 12 schools, libraries, students at home. And we've got a whole bunch of new programs at the Department of Commerce and NTIA's result. So I think the most important thing now is we get the word out so those programs get used in the best ways they can, which is to connect people who would otherwise be disconnected and help grow our economies and civic life nationwide. And I know that HBCUs are going to play a big role in making that happen. And I'm even thrilled to hear what you've done during this crisis, but I actually am more excited to learn what you're going to do in its aftermath.
Well, Chairwoman, we would like to also invite you out to come see us here at Delaware State University. So
I would love to do that, not far up the road.
Okay.
And down the road to Virginia too. Absolutely. You got it. Okay,
Great.
we are going to make time to do these things. And
All right.
listen, in person, I love that we gathered here like this, but I am excited to see people face to face, and hopefully we can make that happen.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your time, and thank you to Congresswoman Alma Adams' office for this timely chat. I hope that everyone learned some more about what's happening on our HBCU campuses around the nation as anchor institutions in many unserved and underserved neighborhoods. You all hold such an important place in our nation's history, and especially as we navigate this pandemic. I hope that everyone learned a little bit more about the Emergency Broadband Benefit and how it could help HBCUs as we move forward. Any questions that you all have, any information that you all seek, I'm sure that Congresswoman Adams' office will share this information shortly. Thank you all so much again for your time, and I hope that everyone has a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.